Welcome. This aquarium is 487 days old today, or 16 months. As you can see, it looks very green and it is completely without filter. My main inspiration for creation of this aquarium was Ecology of the Planted Aquarium. And in this short video I will present to you how this aquarium was made, what happened during the first few weeks, and we will see what was so good with it, the things that were not so good, and what is the future of this aquarium. So let's go. The book Ecology of the Planted Aquarium has 194 pages, and it talks about creating your balanced aquarium or ecosystem. A balanced ecosystem means that the plants, soil, and fish support each other. You will feed the fish and shrimps, and they will produce waste. That waste will then be used as a fertilizer for the plants. This is just a very short and simple explanation of the book that is almost 200 pages. And if you are interested to know more, my advice is to read it. Just please be aware that it has a lot of biology and chemistry, and it is not an easy read. I personally read it 3 times to have better understanding of everything in the book. Aquariums that are made with this method are usually not using filter. They are also not using CO2, and any additional fertilizers are not added. Perfect volume for this type of aquarium is 36 liters or 10 gallons. I think if you go less than this, then you will have trouble keeping perfect water parameters, and if you go more, because this is fully planted tank, you will spend a lot of money on the plants. So 36 liters, 10 gallons is good. Light duration for this aquarium is 12 hours, and even now, 1.5 years later, I don't have issues with algae. Why? Because I added a lot of fast growing plants from the beginning. So 12 hours is not a problem, and you can avoid all the algae, but you need to add a lot of plant mass from the beginning. First step is selecting a potting soil or your base layer that will be basically giving the nutrients to all your plants. In this case, it is best to go with organic potting soil. It means the soil has no pesticides and no chemical fertilizers. You need to be aware that some soils come with additives that may kill your livestock, so the best choice is to go with organic potting soil. It is also okay to take it from the garden, but be aware that you really don't know what you are introducing to your aquarium. After you selected the soil, you need to start sifting it using sieve or a colander, and then you will soak it into the water and leave it for 3 to 5 days. In my case, I left it around 5 days. This step can be skipped, but you need to be aware that the soil and the wood that is contained within the soil will leach a lot of tannins and will make your water very brown. So in the beginning you will need to do a lot more water changes. So the best thing to do is to pre-soak it before you introduce it to the aquarium. Next step after the soil has been pre-soaked is adding it to the aquarium, and you need to add the layer that is approximately 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters thick. And once you have the soil in place, you need to soak it with some water to prevent air bubbles from forming when you will fill up the aquarium. This will be your base layer that will give all the nutrients to the plants. Now you need to add the gravel or a sand. Also, the thickness should be 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. The main idea here is for the gravel to prevent soil from clouding the water, because this soil is it's very fine particles that will for sure go into the water column, and you will have a trouble to have clear water, and you will need to do more water changes for the first month. So the soil is at the bottom, you cap it with a gravel or a sand. Next step is to fill up the aquarium with water, and here you need to be very careful not to disturb the soil that is below the sand and the gravel. So my advice is to fill it up very slowly. Some bubbles should remain trapped below the sand, and now is the best time to release them. As you can see on this video, it will be a mess. So after I did this, I immediately did a full water change to clear all the small particles and foam and bubbles that formed on the surface. So the best way to do is a water change. The main reason why this type of aquariums fail is mostly because there is not enough plants. So it is very important to plant heavy from the beginning. If you plant heavy from the beginning with a lot of fast growing plants, you will minimize the chances of algae growth. So low-tech plants and fast growing plants will have easier time surviving in conditions like this. Also, I would advise you add the floating plants, because they will continuously take up much of the ammonia and nitrites that will be present, especially in the beginning, when the soil will leach a lot of ammonia. Also, I would advise against adding any heavy stones or stones in general on the sand, because soil with time will become toxic and sulfur pockets will develop below the stone, and you will have to tear down the tank in a week or two, maximum a month. So the soil should be covered only with plants, fast growing if possible. This aquarium is without filter, because the plants are doing majority of the job that filter usually does. But I decided to add the water pump only, and the only reason is circulation. Circulation is a must in order to disperse all the nutrients to the plants. Other than water pump, I also added a heater to keep the temperature steady, because later on I added the betta fish. Unlike normal aquariums where you have a cycling phase, with this type of aquarium you can add the fish once the tank is set up. The idea here is that beneficial bacteria is already in the soil, so you can add the fish. This can work for some, but it is recommendation here is to check the water daily if you will add the fish from the beginning. I decided not to do this. I added my fish later on, I think around when aquarium was around 1 month old, In the beginning I added some snails that arrived with the floating plants, and that helped to speed up the cycling process. For the first day or two you can expect the water to be clear, but around day 3 you will notice that the water is getting more and more brown color. So don't be worried about this. It's mostly wood leaching the tannins in the water, and probably some of the soil, the small particles, also found its way to the water column, so you will need to do water changes. I did for the first week I did 3 water changes per week, and later on I continued this with 2 water changes per week for the first month, and after first month I was doing weekly water changes. So if you have a lot of brown water, a lot of dust, foam particles in the beginning, do not be worried. It's normal, and just stay on top of your water changes. Now that aquarium is cycled, you are free to add critters and fauna to your aquarium. Recommendation is always to add snails, because they are hardy and they will do the job of cleaning any algae, but also eating all the dead plants. Also you can add the shrimps, which I added few colors. And last but not least is the fish. In my case I decided to go with the Betta fish, but you can also add any other fish like small tetras, maybe sparkling gourami, honey gourami, or something similar. Be careful not to overstock the aquarium, because the aquarium doesn't have a filter. As you can see, this aquarium looks quite different than in the beginning. The main reason is pearlweed that has completely taken over the whole aquarium. This was never meant to be some kind of aquascape. It's a planted aquarium. So in the beginning I planted a lot of different plants, and I let the nature run its course. Usually now I'm only doing a weekly water change. The volume is 36 liters, and I'm replacing every week approximately 25%. That's around 9 liters or 2 gallons. I'm trimming the plants once a month. Usually it takes for the pearlweed to grow up all the way to the surface. And that's about it. I never added any fertilizers since aquarium was created, so the plants are taking all the nutrients from the soil. And the future of this aquarium, I would like to keep it more, because I got Milky the Betta when he was only 35 days old, and I'm planning to keep him here. Maybe I will do a rescape soon. I will probably cut the pearlweed, make it shorter to be like carpet, and remove some of the pearlweed from the background and plant some other plants, so maybe it will look a little bit different, but I'm planning to keep it so far. That's all. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to write in the comments. And if you would like to create something similar, please don't be discouraged if you have in the beginning a lot of cloudy water, foam, probably the soil will leach tannins. You need to do a lot of water changes, and then your aquarium can look like this. As you can see, the water is crystal clear, and that's all. If you like all the videos I've been creating on my channel, feel free to support me on Patreon. Currently I have 5 Patreons, so a big shout out to them. You can find my Patreon link in the description of the video. That's all. Thank you one more time for watching, and see you in the next video.